So the problems I'm looking to solve, I would say, are connecting some of the interesting new thinking around farming, and especially urban farming in the United States, with existing power structures, existing discourses, with just public awareness. So it's one thing to go to the US government every few years and comment on a draft of the Farm Bill that some senators put forward and say, we need more money for research for urban farming, or we need to support small farmers or beginning farmers. What does that really mean? Who gets to be a beginning farmer? Who gets access to land? The United States government has done a very poor job of helping all the people in the country have access to the ability to grow their own food. And that's something that should change. So who gets to be a farmer is really an open question right now. And it's not clear that on its own, sort of bringing high tech in is going to fix that story, is going to right that wrong. So I think it's important to, in some ways, look at what it does to claim that something is high tech and on the money that comes with that. When you're successful and can convince investors that what you're doing is really new, it's a novel business strategy. And also look at some existing injustices and existing, sort of social inequalities. And when it comes to food and agriculture, those are really pronounced. They're very historic. They go back to the beginning of the country, and they're really evident in urban areas. And so I think, that's where some of the storytelling can really make a difference. It can provide everyone involved with some data that they didn't necessarily have. They can understand some shifts in culture in a different way. Because if you look at sort of a lot of younger farmers who are coming from middle-class backgrounds, who are very involved with clean food, new food, slow food, they're interested in looking at pictures of food on Instagram. They're probably worried about nutrition and diet. They're worried about essentially purity narratives. Is their food safe to eat? Are they eating a diverse range of things? They're interested in authenticity. They want to know where food comes from. They're willing to learn about the story of a seed, willing to learn about plants to some degree. And I think that's interesting and good, and can be that social movement can align in some ways with food sovereignty movements, where you have people who historically don't have a lot of money, don't have a lot of agency, who are trying to grow their own food to have that measure of control over their own health and their own communities. How can these groups kind of work together? In what ways are they the same group in many cases? And how can they, again, go to policymakers or go to investment communities and say, we want to have a business, but we want to make sure we're doing it in an ethical way. Here's our sort of list of demands there, and I think there are models that people are working out, and they can be amplified in different ways. They can, of course, do their own PR and marketing, but I think for someone to do some research around sort of comparing them, putting them in a historical context, that can serve a different purpose, and that can sometimes be read as that kind of primary data to just convene a conversation or help fuel a conversation at a different level. So I am involved trying to work on some grants where we can study the sort of socio-environmental effects of, what happens if a lot of people are having high-tech urban farms in the United States? What does that do for cities in various ways? What does that do for specific communities? What does that do for specific landscapes? And those are all questions that they're answerable with research. So I look forward to more people kind of joining in. And obviously one thing that I haven't touched on, but cannabis has really taken off. Arguably it already took off. People are already into cannabis. It's becoming more visible. It's becoming more capitalized by people who weren't necessarily interested in it before, but they have that money and they see this opportunity. So again, that's one where it's about often urban growers and who gets access to resources, and how do we narrate stories around something that used to be demonized and now is going to be valorized as this great, basically health food in a way, if you look at CBD and hemp. So I think there's a lot of interesting dynamics going on with urban farming, and there's a lot of room for different kinds of research, and I hope to contribute at least a little bit around the specific things I've been focused on, so CEA, Controlled Environment Agriculture, and the sort of Northeast New York City region, but there's certainly more than that I'm interested in.